6 weeks into the war, near the town of Staria Russa, German soldiers pondered a strange contraption captured in recent fighting. It was an artillery system, but not like anything of their own. Each truck carried a crude-looking frame onto which rockets were loaded. The Soviet counterattack here had been supported by dozens of these rocket launchers. It had helped to stall the advance of the entire German Army Group North, striking towards Leningrad. They had bought time, time that would prove crucial. The BM-13 multiple rocket launch system, given the girl's name Katyusha by the troops, was a rail launch rack on a truck chassis. Gears elevated and rotated the launcher rack into the correct firing position, as determined by an artillery sight. The rockets were very inaccurate and would rain down over a wide area, but the Katyusha made up for this with a fearsome rate of fire. One Katyusha could launch 16 rockets in less than 10 seconds. Firing en masse, they could devastate a massive area in the blink of an eye. Leningrad, Russia's Baltic seaport, was a key objective of the German invasion. From here, Soviet submarines and the Baltic fleet threatened Germany's supply of iron ore, which came by sea from neutral Sweden. The plans for the German invasion stated that the assault on Moscow could proceed only after Leningrad and its naval base at Kronstadt had been captured. Hitler, with growing confidence in his own military genius, was increasingly involved in strategic planning. He was now determined that, if necessary, the armored forces assaulting Moscow should be diverted to Leningrad. Army Group North, advancing on Leningrad, had been stopped at the so-called Luga Line in July. This 175-kilometer line of fortifications had been hastily built by soldiers of the reserve and citizens of Leningrad. In August, Army Group North was reinforced with tanks and dive bombers from Army Group Center. They crashed through the Luga line and encircled the troops defending it. The Red Army fed its new KV heavy tanks into the battle. They were produced in Leningrad itself, at the Kirov factory. The front armor of a KV-1 was 75 millimeters thick. The German 37 millimeter anti-tank gun barely made a scratch. But early in the war, fuel shortages and poorly trained crews who didn't know how to repair their vehicle meant many KV-1s and other Soviet vehicles ended up abandoned at the roadside. On the 19th of August, a company of KVs commanded by Senior Lieutenant Kolobanov took up an ambush position near the town of Krasnogvardisk. Kolobanov picked the position himself, overlooking the highway as it wove through the marshes. When a column of German tanks appeared, his tanks took out the lead and rear vehicles and proceeded to destroy all 22 enemy machines. After the battle, Kolobanov's crews counted 156 marks where German shells had hit their tanks but failed to penetrate. After hearing reports about the KV tanks, Hitler once more demanded the capture of Leningrad and its factory that was churning out these monsters. But there weren't enough KV-1s to stop the Germans everywhere. While one German corps was held at Krasnogvardisk, others broke through near Lyuban and Tosna. On the 30th of August, the Germans cut the railway and the highway connecting Leningrad with the rest of the country. Finnish troops, allies of the Germans, approached from the north. The city's electricity supply began to fail, but still no civilians were evacuated, an act which might appear defeatist. On the 8th of September, the Germans captured Schliesselburg on the shore of Lake Ladoga, the final act of encirclement. It was the beginning of a siege that was to last 882 days. When the siege began, the city's population was more than 2.5 million, including approximately 400,000 children. The city contained 300,000 refugees from the Baltic republics and surrounding area. The city's supplies of food and fuel were sufficient for just 30 days. Soviet counterattacks aimed at lifting the siege were all unsuccessful. The German encirclement near Schliesselburg was only about 12 kilometers wide. This sector was the focus of Soviet attempts to lift the blockade. That summer, Soviet counterattacks had robbed Army Group North of valuable weeks. It was time that could not be got back. Now the attack on Moscow would rob Army Group North of its best units. In his diary, the commander of Army Group North, Field Marshal von Lieb, wrote, 11th of September, desperate shortage of time. The Army High Command demands 7 mobile divisions be handed over to its control on the 15th of September. His tanks were on their way towards Moscow. It was a desperately needed respite for Leningrad. The same day, General Zhukov was appointed commander of the Leningrad front. His deputy, Major General Fedyaninski, came with him. Ivan Ivanovich Fedyaninski spent most of his military career in the Russian Far East. In 1939, he was made a hero of the Soviet Union for his bravery fighting the Japanese at the Battle of Khalkhin Gol. In 1941, he commanded a Soviet rifle corps in Belorussia, where he was badly wounded. Zhukov's appointment immediately inspired the defenders of the city. There was new confidence that Leningrad would be saved. With characteristic energy, Zhukov began to organize the city's defenses. Artillery was to be the key, and his secret weapon would be the massive guns of the Red Banner Baltic Fleet.